Mom destroyed our family and took my sister. Backstory: my parents got divorced in August of 2014. It was a messy divorce, one of the worst I've ever known. My mother took half of my dad's savings, half of his pension. He had just retired after 11 years in the army plus 25 years in the police. She was cheating medical benefits during this time, half of the house, the mortgage on which she never contributed to, and even tried to get half of the compensation my dad was awarded after being hit by a car. IQ, medically induced coma, plus in various hospitals and rehab centers from November 2015 to January 2016. Yes, the divorce took almost 2 years. Long story short, she bankrupted my dad. We were on the verge of homelessness for a while. He spiraled into depression, which dragged me into depression. Things were bad for us. She also tried to use me and my sister as a weapon against him. She moved to Sur, a place near London, about 200 miles from where we were living at the time, to be with the man she was cheating on my dad with. My sister, 14 at the time, went with her. My mom tried to make me come too. I was an NC at this point, but I had just started a software development apprenticeship at the time, so I stayed with my father. Things were okay. I even went down to Sur to see them. It was when I was down there that I overheard my stepfather chatting shy about my dad, a man he had never met, calling him worthless, good for nothing, not a real man, was thrown in there a couple of times. She was laughing along all the way. Obviously, I was upset. When I got back home, I texted her to let her know that I knew what he had been saying. This led to a barrage from her side and telling me never to talk or attempt to contact her, my stepfather, or, and this is the only thing that killed me, my sister. I happily obliged with the first two. I carried on talking to my sister through Facebook, saying things like, "I will never not love you. You'll always be my sister." She said similar things back and said she missed me. I went to message her one day and she'd blocked me. I got a text from her saying that the way I spoke to my mom and stepfather was disgusting and that they have been nothing but amazing to me and her. When I first read it, I thought it was weird. When my dad got the exact same text word for word, despite not saying anything to either of them, I knew it was my mother pretending to be my sister. I texted her back something along the lines of, "Your has always been easy to see through, Mom's name." I didn't get any message back. Now is not the time to go into it. But after many a drunken conversation with my dad, I found out my mom was always emotionally abusive and a total narcissist. When she found out I tried to kill myself, she mentioned in a letter to another family member that I should have tried harder. I never want anything to do with her again. The issue at hand, as mentioned above, my father was bankrupted. He had no money left to fight for custody of my sister. I know he'd do anything to see her again. Going through courts is no longer an option. We don't know where they live. We don't have the money. We don't even know if any of them are still alive. And until yesterday, my girlfriend and I were scouring the web for any online presence of any of them. When she found a Facebook profile for my sister that was created around 2 weeks ago, it only has one profile picture and the privacy settings are on pretty much maximum. You can only message it. She sent me the link to it and I'm blocked. However, given what happened with the text message a few years back, I'm inclined to believe that's in part due to my mother. Maybe I'm being stupidly naive and my sister really doesn't want anything to do with me. So here's my dilemma. Not only has my sister been cut off from me, she's been cut off from her entire family. All her aunts, uncles, and grandparents are not allowed to contact her, lest they corrupt her mother's words into seeing me and my dad again. I can message my sister if I create a new Facebook account, even if it's just to let her know that whatever she's been fed about mine and my father's feelings about her are lies and that we still love her. Even if it's just to let her know that her end thinks about her every day and she could die happy after just one phone call from her. The issue is I don't want her mother intercepting the message and making things worse for her or us. I'm sure her account is heavily monitored. I might sound crazy to a lot of people, and I know there's two sides to every story, including this one. But I promise you on my own life, living under my mother is like living under a dictatorship. Your thoughts aren't your own. It's horrible. She will start university in September. I assume I'm thinking the best way to do this is to message the account around October time. The thing is, I don't know if I'm emotionally ready to be told to go myself by her. My dad's therapist has said there's a very real possibility my sister grows to become like my mother. Part of me is ready to accept that fact as closure. Part of me wants to believe that would never happen, and part of me thinks I should just leave it alone. I'm really at a loss for what to do. For 4 years, I've been looking for her. Now that I've finally found her, or at least an online presence of hers, I really don't want to mess anything up. What's the best way to go from here? Relevant comments. Commenter says that writing her name and thinks about her every day, and she could die happy after just one phone call from her could come across as very manipulative, and that it's best to contact her only on behalf of himself and their relationship. Opus, that's a very good point. I hadn't even considered. My thought process is that even if she wants nothing to do with me or my dad, surely she can't have dismissed all her family that easily. But I don't want to do anything that could be twisted to justify what my mom did. Thanks for the advice. I don't want to take away her new family, just reintroduce her back into her old one. Update. Well, I'm 23 now, finished university, starting a real job. Dad and I no longer have depression. Life is pretty good. As for my sister, a few interesting things happened, to say the least. Firstly, I took the overall consensus from the original post and didn't make any attempt to contact her. I did drunkenly check her page from time to time to see if anything had changed, and I found that I'd be unblocked on my main Facebook account, probably around August that same year. My sister rang my aunt and said she wanted to arrange a meeting with her and her son, our cousin. Obviously, my aunt immediately rang my dad and I and told us the good news. We were both uncertain about how we should take it, but overall, we were pretty happy. They all met up, and apparently, my sister has also been kicked out of our mother's house for some reason or another, and is staying with a friend, and she hasn't spoken to my mother for over a year at this point. In November, the story goes that my mother and her new victim managed to ostracize themselves from all their friends down there, and my mother took out her aggression on my sister. So she stormed out and turned up teary-eyed at this friend's house and has been living with them ever since. She asked about me and my father, if we were doing well, and if we hate her. Obviously, my aunt assured her that we definitely don't. My sister says that she wants to get in contact with the both of us, but she wants to take it slow, and she didn't know how we would react. In my view, that's completely understandable. That's interesting point number 1. Just as a side note, my mother once smacked my sister in the face for wasting a tampon when she was 12. I obviously am not completely familiar with that uniquely female experience, but I did get the joy of hearing that moment unfold. Just for an idea of the type of person my mother is and what she did to us both as kids. Interesting point number 2 happens when my sister goes with her new boyfriend up to visit our Nan, another cousin of ours. Big family is also present for this meeting. My cousin tells me that my sister told our Nan that it had been a few months since she had last spoken to our mother, which is quite a bit different to over a year ago. Whatever, maybe my aunt misremembered the meeting. However, my cousin did say that she got a very off vibe from my sister, and to paraphrase her own words heavily, you would think sister had last seen us all last weekend, not 5 years ago. She walked into Nan's house like she owned the place. She didn't really say why she was getting in contact with us and not you or her father, other than she wasn't ready. And she didn't really say why she hadn't spoken to her mother either. I don't know. I wasn't happy with it at all, and we were all thinking that you two, my father and I, should be in that room, not us. But maybe your mother has made me too paranoid. My Nan is my maternal grandparent. I phone her as often as I can, which isn't as often as I would like it to be, admittedly. And I know I'll kick myself for it. I digress. Every time I do phone her, she always asks about my dad and his new partner and sends them both birthday cards, Christmas cards, so on. To me, it just speaks volumes about the type of person my mother is when her mother is more concerned about the well-being of her ex-husband and his new partner. Just trying to get this point home to any doubters. Number 3 occurs when I find out that my sister asked my Nan for some money to help her out with university and not living with her mother anymore. My Nan, being the lovely little 86-year-old Welsh sweetheart that she is, gave her around £2,000. Now, I'm happy to be proven wrong here, but asking for £2,000 within a few hours of reconnecting with family that you haven't seen or made contact with for 5 years is very strange. I find out about this because around November, my nan called me because she had promised me an update on the situation to tell me that for about a week after my sister met up with them all, they had been in regular contact via phone and Facebook. Since that week, nothing. Unreturned voicemails, Facebook messages left on read. My sister had taken the money and off. I spent the day reassuring my nan that she hadn't done anything wrong and she definitely wasn't the idiot she thought she was for giving my sister the money. Number 4 is the least interesting, but you'll be pleased to know that my ramblings end here. At least, it should go without saying that since the first meeting in August with my aunt and her son, neither my dad nor I have had any direct contact with my sister. On Boxing Day, my sister finally calls my nan and wishes her a Merry Christmas. My nan says thanks and hangs up. In January, on my nan's 87th birthday, my sister calls up and wishes her a happy birthday, and also mentions that she's having some money problems. My nan rolls her eyes and hands the phone to my aunt, who buys my sister's sob story hook, line, and sinker, and rings me to tell me the good news and that it's different this time. She really wants to see you around May, which is my birthday month, by the way. My sister sends a text to my aunt to see if she has any old pictures of her. My aunt says she doesn't, but that me and my dad might. Wish we do. My sister sends a text back saying that she will get in touch with us. I know this is going to come as a complete shock, but it's been radio silence since. And in all honesty, I'm fine with that. To me, it's crystal clear who my sister has grown up to be like, toying with family members' emotions, treating her own presence as a gift, and using it to manipulate money out of people. Inconsistent stories about her relationship with the one person she knows would be a deal breaker if the rest of the family knew was still involved, and terrible at hiding her true intentions. Will she ask me for the photos? Probably not, unless she gets really desperate and exhausts all other avenues for exploiting money out of people with pity stories. But even she knows that I know exactly who that money is going to. My mother knows that she's not in my nan's will at this point. If she does want to meet up, I will bring the photos with me. Part of me wants to bring 2 envelopes, half of the photos in one envelope, the other half shredded up in another. And depending on how well the meeting goes, depends on which envelope she gets. I won't do that, but the thought of being that petty is very tempting. I'm not holding my breath. She was 14 and I was 17 the last time I saw her. She's turning 21 this year, and I was 23 in May. I've had my years of anger and grief and done my time with depression. I've hurt many people in many relationships along the way. I'm still learning what's normal and what isn't. But on the whole, my life is split up into before and after. And for the most part, my sister lives and will remain in the before, somewhat because I want to maintain the memory I have of her and not taint it by knowing what she has become. Somewhat because I'm not ready to go through what I overcame again. I've accepted my role in the universe as the recipient of bad karma to make up for all the good karma that randomly happens to other people. I'm okay with that. For the first time in my life, I've been the one in control. As for my attitude to her and my mother, the best word I could adequately use to describe it is ambivalent. They could win the lottery and be on the news tomorrow, or they could get hit by a bus. My reaction would probably be the same. To everyone else out there with estranged parents or other family members, the one thing I learned is that estrangement is the best thing they'll ever do for you. Edit. Thank you all for your comments. I did my best to reply to everybody, but given the response to the original post, I had no idea this would get so much attention. To the people that shared their similar stories, I hope you're all keeping well and staying positive and making the most out of what you've been dealt in life. Hard times make strong people. In reference to my idea of ripping up the photos, that was always only ever half serious. I wouldn't do something like that. It's petty, wouldn't be fair to my sister, and would only give me short-term satisfaction in the form of a pathetic one-up. I realized that before writing this post. In reference to the bad karma line, I actually think I'm a very lucky man, all things considered, and where I want to be in life. I have a fun and happy and stable family around me, and I'm confident in the person I've become. That line is a glimpse into my personality. Some people got that. Some people were genuinely concerned for me, which I do sincerely appreciate. The black dog never really stops chasing you, but I get a much warmer feeling from being able to laugh at a universe that is seemingly constantly on you than I do from pretending that everything is okay. That's what I meant by that line. Thanks again to everyone for taking the time to read. It felt good to get this off my chest and know that a lot of people think I'm making the right moves. A good amount of people made the fair comment that my sister is still young and still possibly under my mother's influence. I appreciate those people taking the time to give feedback and advice, but ultimately, my life had already moved on. I made peace with the fact that I may never see my sister again long before the events I've detailed out here. And when this all kicked off, the closure and acceptance I had moved on from began to unravel. I'm not ready to go back into dark days off of a risk that everything might be okay. Yes, in the future, we may reconnect, but for now, I am focused on my own life, and I'm content with taking some of the rare happy memories I had of my family and my childhood with me, untouched by these developments. This is a list of other things that Opus's mom did that was mentioned in the comments and deserves its own separate spot in the post. These explain in part why sister staying in contact with mom was a deal breaker for the family. Stole $40K from her mother's bank account, which she had to, and left my grandmother with a declined debit card when she was trying to buy groceries. Made Facebook accounts in her own name and then told the police that I had made them to harass her, which led the police to calling me while I was at work. Wrote a letter to my cousin, the female cousin who met my sister in this update, telling her that her father is a weak man and her kids are a pair of bastards because one was born out of wedlock because her father had forced my mother to repay the aforementioned $40K. Repeatedly called my aunt a worthless failure after my aunt's marriage broke down. One of my first memories is my mother screaming at me that I've ruined her life. That was a favorite of hers to scream at both me and my sister, that we ruined her life. And when you're a kid, you don't blame your parents for hating you, you blame yourself. Relevant comments. Commenter mentions that it isn't great of Op's family to demand sister not have a relationship with her mom in order to allow her to get close to family again. In addition to the above list of things, Opus writes this. It's not a case of asking my sister to give up the person who raised her. If she can't see that that woman defines the word evil, we have to be cautious about the type of person my sister is. She is aware of all of the above happening, and the fact that none of us can be certain what her current relationship is with her makes us all the more suspicious. She isn't 14 anymore, she is 20, nearly 21. Yes, she's young, but there's not a lot of time left to unlearn how to not be a manipulative sociopath. I love my sister, and in truth, always will. But it's a hard reality I came to terms with a few months ago, that I may never have a relationship with. Vigilant if I do get contacted by her. Commenter suggests looking into legal action to get Nan's $2K back. I've often considered that. I've come to terms with the fact that pursuing any legal methods would just drag it up again, and at the end of the day £2,000 could be spent on much more worthwhile things. But it's not life-changing money. My dad said something in a drunken state to me when I was 18 that stuck with me. £180 grand. £180 grand that he stole from me, and it was the best 180 grand I've ever spent. I think I've adopted that philosophy. I think my sister has seen what my mother does and seen that it works. My mother is a manipulative low-life scumbag, and it's gotten her a comfortable life gold digging in London. The only influence my sister had between the ages of 14 now is my mother. She's a product of her environment, and it got her the easiest 2K anyone has ever made. I believe a lot of the reasons for my mother's behavior stems partly from narcissism, partly from her realization that her greed and lust for money and power hasn't brought her happiness, but she refuses to admit it. She said to me once when I was about 12 years old, "People that cross me suffer." I was used to bizarre like that and just thought that's normal, and it's just the cry of someone that's deeply hurt and doesn't know how to deal with it. The more I thought it over as the years went by, the more I realized that she turned more and more mental after the death of her father, my grandfather. I really think that switched something in her. It's no excuse and I don't forgive her at all, but it's an explanation. And the fact that she can't make me or my father or the rest of us suffer is probably filling her with rage, which puts an eating grin on my face every time I think about it. People just don't get it if they don't go through with it. And the thing that annoys me the most is they don't realize how lucky they are to be ignorant. I've had people tell me how strong the maternal bond is and look at me with furrowed brows when I tell them why I don't have a relationship with her. I know they're trying to work out what I did, which is why if the question comes up, I just tell people that she's dead. It does feel dirty, but for all I know, she may well be. Well, if anything, I hope you know that it's not a reflection on you at all. You don't need a license to become a parent, which means literally anybody can do it, even the truly awful ones. You're not alone in your experiences, and there's at least one person here who knows what you've been through. Stay strong, mate. The road's only up from here. I was a proper scum bastard when I first started to move to independence. I was 17. This had all kicked off. My father, God love his soul, was too depressed to really be a parent at that time, and the only experience I'd had with relationships was from watching my parents. I'm glad I learned the error of my ways, but I still stay up at night thinking of the people I've hurt, and I know that it's because at that time, I was a product of my mother. I'm better than who I was, but it'll stick with me.